Ninjago is 15 years old. Remember when this thing was supposed to end back in 2012? So I think it's safe to say if you've clicked on this video, you know what Ninjago is. One of LEGO's biggest franchises of all time. With over 270 episodes to its name across debatably three different TV shows, a theatrical movie, thousands of LEGO sets at this point, and so much merchandise, Ninjago is a big deal. But Ninjago was not set up to be this big franchise at all. If you're a fan for long enough, you'll probably know that the show was only meant to last from 2011 with the pilots to 2012 with the end of season 2, and that was going to be it for a long time. But due to the sheer popularity of the series, it kept going and going and going. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing in this case. From a quality standpoint, Ninjago has stayed relatively solid to really good even, with some massive hiccups. But we're not talking about all of those today. For this first part of this little retrospective, I wanted to go back to the beginning, to a time where Ninjago only had the pilots, the first 2 seasons, and whatever came out in between. The original run of Ninjago. Getting the pilots off the ground wasn't the easiest thing in the world according to series creator Tommy Andreasen. Pitching the ninja concept was a bit tough because, well, ninjas on their own are already pretty cool and they don't really need vehicles. Thankfully, he was able to find a way to make it something that actually works within a LEGO confine. The problem now would become that 44-minute special that they were working on, which didn't really have a central focus and was more just a collection of ideas. With Dan and Kevin Hageman's pitch for the LEGO movie and it being in limbo for a couple of years, they would come on to LEGO Ninjago and sort out things, adding motivations, making Kai the main character, and adding the introduction of Nia. Yes, I do mean it when I say Nia wasn't even a part of the original pitch for Ninjago. But finally, by January 2011, everything for the Ninjago pilots, just Ninjago Masters of Spinjitzu at the time, would come out. The first half of the set wave, and the 44-minute special airing on Cartoon Network on January 14th of 2011. But before we get to the pilots themselves, let's talk about the sets that accompanied them, as the first wave came out first, but I'm going to talk about them together because there's no point in talking about them individually. And as a whole, I think the pilot set wave was pretty good. Not the best, but I do like them. It's honestly really weird to see sets this small in actual boxes when nowadays these would have just been poly bags. But there's a bit of a charm. I especially really like how the skeleton builds are. They look very dangerous for the ninja to actually come across, and they have such creative builds. The dragons, though, haven't aged the best. I think the Earth one here might be my favorite because it doesn't have the weird sword wings. I don't hate them, to be fair. I do think there's some charm to them looking back, but considering what we're going to get later, these are a bit underwhelming. But for me personally, my favorite builds in the wave have to both be this Garmadon's Fortress set and the Fire Temple. Garmadon's Fortress just looks really cool, ominous to go into with a creative design here. Not to mention it has an amazing minifigure lineup. You have Kai, Nia, 2 Skullkins, Samokai, and Garmadon, not to mention a lot of the golden weapons. Along with that, you've also got the Fire Temple, which, while not accurate to the special, we'll get to it. I really like the design and build of this one quite a bit. The minifigure collection is also quite great. You get all the golden weapons, and you also get the dragon. I know I was talking about how the dragons aren't as great as they will be later, but it's still cool to have both a temple and a dragon. I'm just saying. But we also got the Spinjitzu spinners, which, to be fair, was a really cheap way to get any of the core ninja and many of the Skullkin if you didn't really want to buy any of the sets. But this was such a big part of Ninjago's brand for a while, hence why they did the whole Spinjitzu thing. The spinners definitely had their charm looking back, but they weren't really built to last. I feel like this spinner kind of system had already been perfected by something like Beyblades, and LEGO trying to get in on it. While I definitely saw a few people playing with their Spinjitzu spinners growing up, it really wasn't as common as I think LEGO wanted it to be. Hence, it really only lasted for the pilots in Season 1. They would bring it back every now and again, but we'll get to those in the future. But still, it's pretty fun, and they made so much content relating to these. It's such a big deal. It's odd to look back at, honestly. Okay, but on to the main event. The 2011 Ninjago pilots. How have they held up? Well, we start with Sensei Wu walking to the Four Weapons blacksmith shop when the evil skeletons attack and they kidnap Nia. So Kai goes on a journey to save his sister while also learning the arts of spinjitzu. Later on, we're introduced to the other three ninja, the quest for the golden weapons, and Kai having to learn that there is more to this world than just him and whatever he needs. The special isn't like the greatest piece of media I've ever watched or anything, but thankfully I think the pilots are still pretty fun and entertaining to go through. The animation itself has kind of aged, unfortunately, but it's kind of got a charm. But I'm the kind of guy who really likes animation that looks quite dated, so that's just me. The writing of the special has also held up pretty well. I wouldn't say it's the best written Ninjago thing, but there's still a lot of good laughs here, and the character banter between Kai and the other three ninjas is a lot of fun. You can really tell Kai is quite the outsider compared to the other three who work really well off each other.
What's the matter with you? Shh.
And Sensei Wu is just really funny here. He's got so many good moments in just this special alone. And the Skullkin are also pretty fun villains here. They're not like the most dangerous and creepy things you'll ever see, but they're pretty funny, and every time they're on screen, it's quite entertaining. Knuckle and Cruncher really steal the show in so many moments. Unfortunately, I think their General Samukai could use a bit more work. He's really not in the special that often, but he really doesn't do much than just give basic commands. The end of the special is really where Samukai becomes the most interesting. He wants to betray Lord Garmadon and reclaim the underworld. Unfortunately, Garmadon prepared for this and set him up for a trap that would, well, let Garmadon go somewhere that he can possess the four weapons. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about Garmadon. He's fun here. I like that for the most part we mainly just see him in the shadows, revealing what he finally looks like for real only near the end of the special. But his plot's a bit nonsensical. He wanted them all united in the underworld, and then just to go to some place that he somehow learned about. Like, what if Samukai held all the weapons in Ninjago and he created the vortex there? What would have been Garmadon's backup plan? Did he even have one? In fact, why would he think they wouldn't have done that? Because, well, Samukai is the one carrying all the weapons in this scene. Okay, I am thinking way too much about this really weird plot hole, but whatever. The main draw of the special for me has got to be Kai's story. A story that we've heard millions of times, but thankfully I think Ninjago tells well enough. Kai being hot-headed, impulsive, and unable to work with other people, to being a little more focused, understanding, and actually being able to work with the team he is supposed to. It was really nice to see this character evolution across the 44 minutes this special goes into. And well, yes, I wish the other three could have gotten a little more attention in the special in particular. I think it was the right move to just center this on one of them, and Kai's story is definitely the one that probably makes the most sense to choose. The other three aren't bad in this special. I do like Cole, Jay, and Zane here, but you can definitely tell they don't get to flourish until the show becomes, well, a show. Jay also is kind of a creep here.
My turn!
Jay, you barely know her. Why are you begging her for a hug? Thankfully, the other two aren't as bad in this situation. I actually really like how stern Cole is here. It's a bit of a contrast to how we know him now, but especially with the context given in future episodes, it actually makes this make a lot more sense as to why he's so stern and a little more focused here compared to the more happier and looser side of him we'll see later on. And Zane is as sensitive and sweet as ever. I love Zane. Admittedly, this isn't where he's gonna peak, but he still provides a good amount of laughs and heart here, and I can't help but love him. But that's kind of how I see the pilots in general. Definitely not the peak of what this series is going to become moving forward. Has some pretty dated elements and a story that isn't the most fleshed out, but gets to the point, and it's really nice to just see the most raw interpretation of what Ninjago could be at a time where not much was really expected of it. And fortunately, this pilot was quite successful. As in LEGO's eyes, they were like, what if we made 2 seasons to promote the remaining set waves for 2012 and 2013, and then bada bing, bada bam, 2 seasons of a TV show are ordered. However, though, we would kind of have to wait 10 months for the first episode of Season 1 to air. A little sad, but thankfully a couple of other supplemental Ninjago stuff came out, so why not we look at some of the stuff relating to the pilots before we go into Season 1? Like the DS game Ninjago Battles. I had this as a kid. I definitely had fun with this game, but I mainly got it because, well, I loved Ninjago and wanted to consume everything I possibly could at the time. And this was one of those games where you moved with the stylist, and not usually a big fan of those, but Ninjago will have to be the exception. Anyway, the game isn't anything too deep. If you ever played LEGO Battles, this is the same overhead strategy game as that. Has some charming sprite work. It adapts the story of the pilots, though it does some slightly different things, like opening up with the other 3 guys instead of Red Boy here, and also giving us a villain story, which I absolutely loved as a kid because I liked the fact I could play as the Skullkin and Garmadon. But yeah, for little old me, this did a fine job giving me a Ninjago interactive experience, though admittedly it's been overshadowed by future games that just do that a little better. But I hold a special place in my heart to the fact that LEGO was confident enough to give the pilots themselves a video game before it even became a show. That's really cool. Ninjago stuff was also a part of LEGO Universe, a game I admittedly never played but really wanted to at the time because it had Ninjago stuff. I just didn't have a way to play it. Kind of sad. But there is one thing that happened before Season 1, and this is something the Ninjago series would do a lot of afterwards, and that is shorts. 6 shorts that came out centering around pilot stuff. So we got to see a little more from the Skullkin, the Core Ninja interacting more often, and the backstories to Wu and Garmadon. These were pretty fun, as it felt like getting new micro episodes. Sure, I would have preferred having full half-hour content, but this was a nice supplemental just before the main event at the end of 2011 came out. But hey, we're right here now. Let's finally talk about... When it comes to Season 1 set wave, I really have to hope you like the color green and that you really like snakes, because so many of the sets are green and are snakes. It really feels like they're setting up a lot for Chima here, but thankfully I do enjoy quite a few of the sets in here. I think they look quite fun, and I admire how much they had to try to make the snake design work for like a wrecking ball or this mech here. But hey, there were some vehicles for the Core Ninja. Definitely not their best vehicles, but these do hold a lot of nostalgia for me. I'm a big fan of Kai's motorcycle, and Zane having a snowmobile is just perfect, you know? I also love the fact that the collectible changes halfway through the Season 1 line. Like for the Winter Wave, it's the Serpentine Staffs. However, in the second wave, it is the Fang Blades, which did become the collectible of the main show. Heck, only really the first 3 episodes emphasize the staffs. Everything after that, barely are they even acknowledged. For me, though, I'd have to call some of my highlights the original Destiny's Bounty. Not the best set in the world, but this one holds a special place in my heart because this is the first time I ever got like an $80 set. Had the coolest grandma in the world. And I will say, I really liked this truck they made. It also came with that snowmobile I mentioned earlier. But I gotta say, in spite of only just adding 4 more sets, it feels like the second half of this wave gets a lot more interesting. Here we got the Samurai X mech. I love this one so much. You got the Ultrasonic Raider. Again, such a cool looking thing here. Heck, even the generic Serpentine vehicle here, their motorcycle, I think looks pretty cool. And I like the fact it has like a tail whip feature. But of course, I think the best set of the wave has to go to the Dragon and Great Devour battle set here. Like, what can I say? This set's awesome. Comes with 2 Serpentine Generals, Lord Garmadon, the Golden Weapons, the Green Ninja, Sensei Wu, the Great Devourer, the Ultra Dragon. Literally nothing else I could ask for. But okay, enough stalling. The time came, Season 1 aired, and how does it hold up? So with peace brought to Ninjago, our ninja have become lazy. However, there are rumors that Lord Garmadon is back. Unfortunately, it's only his pesky son, Lloyd Garmadon. The ninja don't think much of him. However, Lloyd then ends up releasing the Serpentine, an ancient tribe of snake people, and then they swear vengeance on Ninjago, but Lloyd also then turns good afterwards as well. But in that sake of changing sides, he then gets kidnapped by the snakes. Wu has no choice but to bring Garmadon into the fold, and the rest of the ninja must unlock their full potentials, and in a hope to stop Pythor before the Great Devourer is released. You know, I gotta say, on this rewatch, Season 1 holds up really well. Not truly perfectly, but man, for what it had to do, it does such a great job at it. I really think this season benefits from having the pilots first, meaning it doesn't have to introduce us to all our 4 main characters, instead build off of what we already saw of them in the pilot. Jay's a little inventor and has like a thing for Nia. Well, why not make that the crux of his story for his true potential? Cole's a bit more rock hard, then why not relate that to his connection to his father? Zane feels a little distant, why not make him a robot? And with Kai, he was already shown to be envy, impulsive, and a bit egotistical, so why not make him want to be the Green Ninja the most and get carried away with it? The character work of this season is really stunning. It really seems like they looked at last year's content and was like, this was good, but we can do it even better. And it really shows in the final product. And it's great to see a season where it feels like all our main focuses have something to do. There's a lot of seasons moving forward where it seems like the show is going to struggle with this a lot, but here they just do it relatively easily. Granted, that's not to say they don't have any favorites. Zane in particular has like 3 significant roles this year, but even then, everyone at least gets something to do, some kind of character moment that means a thing, and some kind of evolution on what we've already seen before. The Serpentine are also a really fun antagonist group here. Yeah, I did praise the Skulkin for their goofy antics, but the Serpentine have that in tenfold. Not to mention they also just have way more cool designs and are just more unique from each other by their tribe gimmicks. You got the Hypnobrai who can hypnotize people, the Vampire who can turn people into them, the Venomari who can spit acid, and the Constricti who dig. I feel like that should be the default for everyone, but hey, they're very creative. And plus, they must have had an impact on young me. I can literally name off all of the tribe members. I'm being dead serious. But there is one tribe member still worth mentioning. Pythor, of his own purple Anacondrae tribe. We'll get more into them when we hit Season 4, because they'll be more important there, but Pythor on his own here is just wonderful. He's cunning, he's demeaning, yeah, he's also funny, he's very charming. He's just got everything that makes for an entertaining villain, and he's the kind of guy you love to hate, especially by the end where his madness to release the Great Devourer goes insane, and then seeing the Great Devourer is gonna, devour him, and how much he's like, oh wait, maybe this wasn't such a good idea in his eyes. Love it. We also have Pythor's right-hand man, Scales, and man, I gotta say I feel bad for him. His whole ploy in the earlier episodes is how much he feels like a second fiddle to Slithera here. Then he gets to become general, only to end up being second in command again to Pythor. He really just can't be the main villain, can he? How sad.
Get your hands off me!
You might have also noticed in the plot recap, there's something a little different about this season, and it has to be that Garmadon is not an antagonist in any way. Even if the sets like to pair him with the snakes, Garmadon is firmly anti-snake this season. With his son Lloyd captured, we get to see a new side of Garmadon. The side of him that isn't just pure evil, wants to take over the world. We learn that he didn't really want to be evil. He always wanted to have a choice, but the Great Devourer made that choice for him. But when his son is in danger, he's willing to do the right thing, even if it's not what he would normally want to do. Nia has also become quite more capable this time around. Instead of just being the damsel in distress, she becomes Samurai X, and she's willing to kick butt where it's needed. It's a natural evolution for her character. She was already shown to be a bit of a fighter in the pilots and the shorts that accompanied them, so amping that up and having her be a semi-side member of the team was really cool, and I'm glad they decided to go with this. But we should probably talk about the newest addition to the Ninja team. Man, it's really weird to think there was a moment in time where Lloyd wasn't even a part of this franchise at all. But here he is. And when he was introduced, he was an annoying little child. I gotta say, though, he's really funny in this role. Seeing him steal candies from babies, scream about how he doesn't want girls in his treehouse. It's all just really funny stuff looking back. It's like this is a child's equivalent of being evil. But it's nice to see him also grow up during this season, realizing that releasing the snakes wasn't the best thing, and realizing he didn't also have to mirror what his father was. He didn't have to be just like him. And, well, push comes to shove when the mystery of the season came. It was a wild time looking back. Everyone I knew was debating who was going to be the Green Ninja. We were having arguments. It would be Kai, it would be Jay, it would be Zane, it'd be Cole. Who knew? We used our spinners to prove how well the ninja were doing, that hype going around it, and when Cartoon Network revealed episode 10 and were promoting it like crazy, who would become the Green Ninja of our four? And it was none of them. So Lloyd got to be the Green Ninja. There were definitely children out there who were not happy with this reveal because of how nasty Lloyd acted early on, but in reality, this was the best thing they could have gone with. First it was brother versus brother, now it's father versus son, dividing a family, and it's just so tragic, but with the growth Lloyd is going to go through as the show goes on, I wouldn't honestly trade it for the world. And hell, even early on here, he's shown to be a little capable at a young age, if not clearly undertrained and prepared for it. And I gotta say, looking across the 13 episodes, it's really cool to see how the season itself builds off each other. The ninja become lazy after the pilots, so their fights become a little small scale to readjust them, having Lloyd steal sweets, making a treehouse, invading a junkyard. But with the rise of Pythor and the threat becoming more severe, we see the ninja mature quite a bit. They still act like teenagers, but older teenagers. They're not as complainative about chores, for example. The stretch of episodes 7 through 10 of each ninja facing their own struggles is one that I absolutely adore. Each ninja learns something about themselves, the way they act, the way they feel, what makes them tick, and all without Sensei Wu as well, which I'm really glad they decided to write him out during this time. Each one proving that they can truly do it on their own. They just needed that push on what it means to face your true potential, and I'm sure there were a lot of kids who really connected with what the ninja were going through. I sure know I did with my boy Zane here. Well, not the robot part, but you know. And season 1 came off to a legendary end, with the Great Devourer being released. Ready to consume all of Ninjago, our 4 ninja are helpless in spite of having the most powerful weapons in the world. In many ways, it felt like nothing could truly stop the Great Devourer, each ninja trying their best, making a new toy, throwing stuff at it. Everything made the Devourer just feel so dangerous, and I love how actually severe it feels. Heck, I like that the episode right before the Devourer starts attacking doesn't even play the weekend weapon in the end credits. It's like they really wanted to make it clear that, yeah, this was dangerous. And the Devourer's defeat has to be one of the most satisfying. Lord Garmadon watching on a TV, then he comes to the ninja being like, okay, I want revenge. Takes the golden weapons. The ninja have to do everything in their power to put the Great Devourer in its place. Garmadon gets to put the finishing blow on its weak spot, and the very monster that created Lord Garmadon as we knew him was destroyed. Unfortunately, though, the ninja giving Garmadon their golden weapons was a bad idea as he ran off with them. Some things just never change. Oh, and speaking of never change, hey look, Wu's alive! Yay! But in all seriousness, Season 1 comes to an incredible end. Man, I am so impressed with Season 1 looking back. Sometimes I think to myself, was this thing ever all that good, or is it just nostalgia? Especially knowing how good the show gets later. In many ways, it can make it so easy to forget the show started this strong out of the gate. Was this a perfect start? Not really. Sometimes I can say the morals are a little forced, and there are some episodes that could be maybe a little more interesting, but there's nothing in here that's flat out bad. Everything is still at least a little enjoyable, and you can clearly tell they wanted to tell a meaningful story that felt a bit like a blockbuster, but on a TV scale. This one really did such a good job setting up the Ninjago television template, and pretty much every season knew that this one was the basis to build off of, as we see it expand and evolve from here. But how does its immediate sequel fare? The funny thing is, we actually didn't have to wait as long as the pilots to Season 1, as Season 2 only aired 2 months later. Man, remember when shows used to come out this fast? Like, look at Adventure Time. In the same year seasons 1 and 2 were coming out, Adventure Time was wrapping up its 3rd season, aired all of its 4th season, and started its 5th season. Like, that's just ridiculous. And we'll probably just jump right into season 2 this time. There really isn't as much supplemental Ninjago media I really want to talk about in between the wait. But yeah, let's just jump into season 2 this time. And it will be season 2, not the sets, because the sets actually came out after. So I'll just talk about it in chronological order.
Go, Ninja, go!
After collecting the golden weapons from the previous seasons, Lord Garmadon combines them into the Mega Weapon, and now he creates some weird obstacle for all the ninja to face off against for the first, 6 episodes. Yeah, if you couldn't tell by that very basic plot synopsis this time, the first half of this season goes in quite a different direction from season 1. The Mega Weapon arc of this season is usually not the best revered by fans, and it feels like a bunch of filler to many. From what I can tell, the reason this season even starts with these episodes is because the Hegemons didn't know what the theme of the season was going to be, so they made all these episodes to kind of stall. But I do have to think to myself, are these episodes that significantly more wacky than the previous season? I mean, the answer is yes. Seriously, we have the race episode here. But when you think back to some of Season 1's episodes, we had the ninja taking down some poor kid's treehouse, Zane dressing up in pink, and an episode where the ninja joined a talent show. You know, we were already doing these kind of silly things before. But, to say in Season 1's case, there was a clear overarching through line of the Serpentine and them trying to release the Great Devourer. Season 2's first half, I mean, there is a through line, but it's a little less specific. It's mostly the Lloyd's training arc to some extent. We see the ninja have to learn to put Lloyd's training first, then Lloyd learns Spinjitzu and the ability of the Scythe of Quakes, then he learns the ability of the Nunchucks of Lightning. We see him become more of a leader for a while, him needing to learn that he needs to grow up, admittedly pretty forcefully. So, I mean, as you can kind of tell, there is a consistent through line, but it's not like it's really building up to something in the same way Pythor snatching the Fang Blades for the Devourer has. It's a little more loose than that. And for what it's worth, I will say all these episodes are at least pretty memorable. You could say whether or not they're filler or a waste of time, but are you really gonna forget the episode where the ninja have evil bizarre clones? Or the ridiculous race one? I don't really think so. And, I mean, them being looser in plot, does that really mean that on their own they're not very fun? I disagree. I had a blast rewatching all these episodes. You could argue there is some nostalgia for that, but I don't know, they're still pretty funny. They still give me a lot of the action. And heck, seeing the main ninja actively, train Lloyd and seeing that bond grow was something I really enjoyed about this first half of the season, and I feel like that part doesn't really get a lot of attention. And I'm also just gonna say it, Ninja Ball Run really isn't that bad, guys. It's not really all that great of an episode and feels super outlandish, but it's kind of fun, I can't lie to you. The race is just so over the top and wild, and I love the fact that the coppers that were chasing down Scales after he got arrested just wanted to win the race. And then later on, Scales himself gets obsessed with wanting to win the race too. But one of the biggest additions during this half was Dareth, and I gotta say, at least here, he's a pretty fun character. He's over the top, he's silly, and he's just got a lot of good lines. He's not the most deep character here or anything, but for the goofy guy who just lets the ninja use their dojo to help train the Chosen One, he's still fun, and I'm always glad to see him every time I do this year. And as for characters who are inherently more silly this year, Lord Garmadon. If you couldn't tell by his plots this year, things have changed a lot with him.
No! That's not fair! That wasn't even part of the vehicle in the first place!
He's not as somber and being as accepting about his son defeating him. He tries to stall it a lot. And I don't mind that too much. I'm glad they didn't have him try to outright kill him. It's like they still at least had a good idea of what character they already made. But he's a lot goofier this time. But I will at least say Mark Oliver seems to be having a blast voicing him, and he is very funny, even if it is for the wrong reasons. But something I will say I do like, and I'm not fully sure if it's intentional, is that with all of Garmadon's new wild ideas that are meant to prevent Lloyd from not being able to train, only help him become a stronger ninja. A little bit of me likes the headcanon that the good part of Garmadon is doing this so that he will stop him. It's not like a fact or anything, by the way. That's just like a personal headcanon I like to go by. But I will say this. By the end of this half of the season, you do see it start to pick up quite a bit with the episode Child's Play. This is one that brought the ninja down to Lloyd's level, realizing how hard it is to be a child, and Lloyd having to make the ultimate risk to actually age himself up forcefully. That's kind of sad, honestly. This episode, to me at least, is definitely the highlight of the Mega Weapon arc here. I like seeing the perspective of the main ninja having to be in Lloyd's shoes for once, and Lloyd having to man up and just accept the fact that he's going to have to force himself into aging for destiny. But then there's also the time traveling episode, and, well, it's mostly fun until you get to the ending, which is just completely confusing, because the four ninja use their weapons to destroy the mega weapon, so I guess they don't have the golden weapons anymore. But no, wait, the Lloyd is still here, and he's grown up, and all the stuff that Garmadon wished for is still mostly around, and the Serpentine are still here, who shouldn't be, and Garmadon's still got the 4 arms, even though he shouldn't. And, okay, I'm just gonna stop right there. Rewatching these episodes was a surprising delight here. Sure, they aren't the peak of Ninjago, and when you compare it to Season 1, which had a more laser-focused run, I can understand people thinking this is a huge downgrade. But if the episodes are still entertaining, is it such a big deal? I mean, keep in mind, though, I'm the same guy who likes the Steven Universe Townie episodes, so maybe I'm not the right person to say if these are worth watching or not. But for this fan, I can safely say I still have a good time watching these like I did back when I was young. There'd be a month break in between these two halves, so Season 2's second half, where it starts going into the Stone Army stuff, would resume in October of 2012, the best time to watch Cartoon Network, don't at me. The doomsday clock would start ticking. The final battle was coming upon us. With Garmadon losing his mega weapon, he remembers when he was looking through Captain Soto's journal and the mention of the Dark Island. I'll admit that's actually a pretty nice way to connect the two plots here, and Garmadon wants to find the Dark Island, hoping it'll help him take over Ninjago. Serpentine are sick of him, they betray him, and Garmadon does end up finding the Dark Island with the mysterious Overlord, who promises him great power. Meanwhile, with our heroes, the ninja find Lloyd's mom, the worst mother ever. They then have to fight the Stone Army. Later on, they find Zane's old dad. They then regain their elemental powers while Lloyd gains a new golden power. And the final battle is on. They literally use a clock to demonstrate the final battle counting down. Not gonna lie, it's so on the nose, I love it. You can tell in structure this time around it's a lot closer to Season 1, going narrative beat to narrative beat, and thankfully, I think it works out pretty well for it. I enjoy the rise of the Stone Army was unintentionally caused by the destruction of the Great Devourer. That's a really cool way to connect these parts, though admittedly it's kind of weird that this is only coming up halfway through the season, but that's okay. We even get Lloyd's mother, who I mentioned is the worst. She dropped her son off at Darkly's school for bad boys and just left him there. You know what? Lloyd was right. He shouldn't have wanted to talk to her. But to give Misako credit, I do like the lore she adds, talking about the big battle between the first Spinjitzu Master and the Overlord, and how that fight is unfinished, with the prophecy now building on to that aspect of the story. And in general, the Stone Army, while not my personal favorite army the ninja have ever fought, I do think do a good job feeling intimidating. The first episode introduced this big guy right here, and, well, it feels pretty impossible to stop. Even Lloyd's all-power is really no match for it. They have to outthink it. This isn't just something the ninja could punch anymore. They actually do have to use strategies around them. And it's carried over into the next episode where they have to fight smaller but a huge horde of them. They're pretty unmatched. While the Snakes and Skullkin definitely stick out to me as being more funny and a bit memorable than the Stone Army's antics, because they don't really have any, the Stone Army actually does have a general presence, and they feel really dangerous when the ninja have to go up against them. And for what was supposed to be the finale, I'm very glad they actually raised up the stakes for them. They also brought Dr. Julian, Zane's father from the previous season in his flashbacks, into the fold, and it was really nice to see him. He's a really sweet guy, and I love the story between the two in the episode The Last Voyage, of him not being sure how Zane would feel about some of the bad things he's done, and Zane wanting to maybe change parts of himself because he's afraid of forgetting him again. It's a really strong episode here, and I really enjoyed the two's bond. Definitely one I don't hear enough talked about. But I would say for this half of the season, while our core ninjas still do fun stuff here and there, it's Lloyd who definitely gets the focus. And I'm all okay with it. I really like what they do with Lloyd here. It was great seeing him and his father's sides on this. One that just wants to make the world better but doesn't really want to fight his father, and the other who wants to make the world evil but he doesn't really want to harm his son in any form. And while the Overlord is far from my favorite Ninjago character, he does a really good job trying to push Garmadon into his side, pushing the worst aspects of him, trying to be like, yes, this is the only way, Garmadon. And by the end of the season, you can really feel Garmadon getting desperate. He's tired of people not understanding how he feels or sees things. Destiny took everything away from him. And destroying the balance is the only real way he can get his family back, his brother back, and just have people understand what it's about. It's a really strong dynamic here. But within Garmadon's desperation, the Overlord takes control of Garmadon, now that the balance is slowly starting to be more broken, so that the world can be plunged into darkness forever. Lloyd has to face off against his father, and wow, this didn't really go all that well for him. I actually do like the fact they genuinely show him losing this day. The Destiny foretold that he was gonna win, but no. The Overlord just beats up Lloyd. He has his leg broken, and the ninja are trapped on the Dark Island. I gotta say, I knew that there was another episode, obviously. I was sure it wasn't gonna end like this as a kid, but man, it actually kind of felt really real seeing the ninja just lose to the guy. He was seen as powerful and dangerous, and it's like, what do you do against him? And man, it must be hard to remember now, but Cartoon Network just did such a sick job airing and promoting Ninjago back then. Because before this final battle hit, we got pretty much a whole marathon of Season 2 leading up to it. Just so you can remember, yes, this big final battle moment, it's all here. The promos made this to be just the biggest deal ever, and young me was so excited. And then it came, the final battle episode. The Overlord is here, ready to take over Ninjago City, and for the most part he does it. Everyone is corrupted, except for Dareth. You know, props to Dareth, he really stood up to the Overlord here. He was kind of bold for doing that. Our ninja, though, aren't so lucky. They're still stuck on the Dark Island. However, they find the first Benjitsu Master's mech, and thankfully the Ultra Dragon also arrives. So it's time. They're going to the big building, and, well, the Stone Army temporarily overpower them. But Dareth then claims the Helmet of Darkness, which I find funny that Dareth, of all characters, got to do this. But now it's a walk up to the top to fight the Overlord. Our 5 ninja are going in. However, they slowly but surely get whittled down until there's just one. And I love this moment from Kai here while he stays back.
No, there's only one green ninja.
This is honestly such a great moment here that shows how much Kai has evolved since the beginning of Season 1. And then the ultimate battle between good and evil is on. Who will win, light or darkness? Well, Lloyd's light is thankfully bright enough as we go full on Kingdom Hearts. A lot of aspects of this finale are a bit on the nose, but I can't lie and still say it's quite satisfying to see 2 seasons of Lloyd growing from a snot-nosed brat to a full-on ninja hero. Lloyd takes on the chance, brightening up the world, purifying it of its main evil, and restoring balance to Ninjago. Everything is at peace once more. But an unintentional factor of Lloyd's goodness, something special happens. His father, the world's most evil man, finally gets to show his true colors and be a good guy yet again. Man, I always loved seeing this. And I gotta say, I really still like this finale, no matter some of the issues, no matter how corny it can feel sometimes. It definitely isn't a flawless finale, like, I'm glad the show continued beyond this point because there's so much cool stuff we haven't gotten to yet. But I will say, this was still a pretty good way to end the series. And this run as a whole just did a really good job telling the story of a father and a son destined to fight, no matter how much they don't want to, and that destiny isn't always 100% black and white, and there's always going to be a little gray in there. I still think that this stretch of the series is still really good. And that ending shot with everybody looking up into the sun is one of my favorite scenes visually. With our ninja looking into the sunset, hoping for more in the future. Initially, there wasn't even going to be any more. This was going to be it. LEGO was initially done with the series. We didn't need any more Ninjago. But then it got popular, kids phone called LEGO every day, and they were like, fine, here's season 3, and then they just kept going. But before we truly put a pin into this retrospective, let's take a quick look at season 2 set wave, and man, this set wave kind of sucks, I'm not going to lie to you. If there's any reason for me to be glad that Ninjago gets to keep going, it's so that this didn't get to be the last set wave we got. Like, you look at the pilots in Season 1, those have just such strong and memorable sets. Here, I like the Golden Dragon. Honestly, Kai's Fire Mech here is possibly my favorite one, and it was only $10. I had this Garmatron, it sucks so much, I hate it. It doesn't even have the cannon like in the show, come on! But yeah, if you couldn't tell, not the biggest fan of Season 2's set wave here. It's just pretty so-so. Come on, the Earth Driller's not even big enough to fit another person. But I think we're gonna cap off this run of Ninjago here. I do plan to cover the rest of the show, for sure. But I kinda wanted to do this by the original run of Ninjago. That stretch of January 2011 to November 2012, or I guess January 2013 technically, that's when the sets came out. But we're stopping here. If I keep going, we're going to be watching like an 8-hour video. And I'd love to make an 8-hour Ninjago video, but just not right now. And thankfully, I think this beginning run still holds up pretty well. Like, sure, it's not perfect, the animation's a bit dated, some of the morals are a bit blatant, dialogue can be a bit on the nose at times, and there definitely are things that, like, later seasons will do much better. But I also just love how complete this run feels. Like, you can tell watching back, not everything was planned through right away, and that some stuff just doesn't line up entirely. But as a whole epic that's airing on a children's network, that kind of feels like a televised blockbuster, I would say. I think they did a really good job telling a story and teaching themes about morality. And seeing it on this kind of scale, where it feels like a televised blockbuster, is just so cool. Plus, it was nice to look back at a time where Ninjago on television wasn't just it airs at like 6:30 a.m. with no advertising. And I just love how much of a big deal it felt to LEGO early on to tell this kind of story, to advertise these kind of sets, to make this adventure themes feel so grand. And they take a lot of these cues for future themes that would experiment with it, like Chima or Nexo Knights, but none of them obviously ended up comparing to how Ninjago's success would go. Now, that's not to say those are horrible. I haven't seen Nexo Knights in ages, and Chima has a lot of good qualities for sure, but Ninjago clearly ended up sticking out in a way that no other original theme in LEGO's library ever did, and I'm very glad to say that its beginnings are still worth watching to this day. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, the show should have ended at Season 2. No, not at all. But I also think that some of the community could be a little nicer to these seasons. I'm not saying you gotta obsessively love them, but you gotta remember, these still set up the cornerstones of what Ninjago is gonna be like moving forward. And to this day, the format and templates of what Ninjago is are still found within this era. Sure, they'll refine and evolve these, but that's how most shows, well, really should work. But I'll also make this clear, I am not covering Season 3 through 7 next. We will get to those this year, I will at least hope so, but I also got a couple of other videos I want to work on, and I don't want to burn myself out of Ninjago too much. But thank you all for watching, and tell me in the comments below, what do you think about the original era of Ninjago? Does it hold up well, or is it super dated? Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.